Thank you for joining us for SmartLove's presentation on supporting children's happiness in school. SmartLove Family Services is a nonprofit agency providing mental health counseling, assessments and therapeutic tutoring, parenting support, and early childhood education through SmartLove Preschool. Our presenters today are Julia Wright. She is a psychotherapist and a clinical supervisor at SmartLove, and Allison Pildner, who is one of our therapeutic tutors. And now I will turn it over to Julia.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us today for our discussion about how can I support my child's happiness in school. And when Allison and I began to explore this topic and the work that we do every day, we came up with 5 questions that we will talk with you about today. And as you can see here, those questions include: what is happiness and what is unhappiness? So we'll define that a little bit together. And from there, we'll want to know, how does happiness or unhappiness affect children's learning in school life? And how can we support our children's happiness at school? And finally, how can a service like therapeutic tutoring help with these ideas? We can go ahead and get into it. So what is happiness? I wanted to start with, just sort of the idea that happiness is not necessarily a good mood. A lot of times we think about being happy, being smiling and laughing, and that's how we can be happy. Of course, that's something we want to experience and is included in happiness and feeling happy, but we also think about something that we call an inner happiness. And that is something, within our minds and our experience that is an ability to maintain an inner well-being, and maintaining that in the face of challenges and losses. And when we talk about losses, we're thinking about anything in our day that doesn't go the way we would have wanted. So with that perspective, we know there's a lot of ups and downs in any day. And so to be able to maintain a sense of security and self-worth in the face of those kinds of challenges is what we're talking about. Additionally, a sense of, feeling loved and lovable and loving, being a good person despite things that may not go our way, or not being able to have things that we want when we want them. This is something along the lines of having a positive self-esteem. And ultimately, all of this kind of inner happiness leads to an ability to turn to help and care for your feelings, despite something not going the way you would want. And so we can imagine this would look like a child who can enjoy things that go well, and can also have a sense of feeling okay and feeling good about themselves when something is hard. So we also want to take a moment to think about then, what is unhappiness? And so, like I talked about with happiness, unhappiness isn't necessarily a bad mood. We all have a broad range of feelings, and so we expect with children too that they will experience all feelings, including upset feelings like disappointment and sadness and angry feelings. So that would be normal. And an inner unhappiness then would be more so of a pattern of difficulty when having those kinds of upset feelings or facing losses, difficulty maintaining a sense of self-worth, of feeling like they're a lovable person, and that they can, maybe have help for the challenges they're facing or a loss that's happening. And we also think about, an inner unhappiness can be a pattern of taking on a personal negative meaning when there's a loss or challenge, that this must be maybe my fault or something wrong with me. That then can really interfere with the child, going on to be able to ask for help or work through and cope with a challenge. So this can look like frequent anxious mood or frequent depressed mood that can lead to avoiding challenges, blaming oneself when things are hard, or lashing out at others as a way to cope with this kind of stress. And a real inner unhappiness then would lead to maybe these kind of impacts in the home environment, in the social environment, or the academic environment, sort of inhibiting an ability to take on challenges and make progress, while being able to enjoy that process and feel okay with oneself. We can look at the next slide. So now we want to know our next question: how does happiness affect children's learning and school life? So let's start off with this fundamental belief that we have, that all children want to do well and want to feel good about themselves. All, babies come into the world with an innate drive to connect through their relationships as a way to feel good about themselves and to do well. And so, Allison, I'm wondering if you can speak to us a little bit now about just the areas of development that happiness can affect, and maybe talk to us about what you've seen and that relationship to their school life.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. So happiness can really affect all aspects of school life, from, self-esteem, confidence, just feeling good about yourself, to resiliency. Things, as you said, don't always go the way that we want. And being able to come back from that and continue to try, being motivated to, try your best and to do well, and then ask for help when things are difficult and when things don't go the way we want, or when we don't understand something right away, to ask for help from teachers, from parents, things like that. So yeah, one example that I've seen, is a student that came in to see me and just didn't want to show me any of his schoolwork, didn't want to talk about school, just really didn't feel good about himself in school. And then through our work together, we were able to build a relationship and explore that side of him that really didn't feel good about school and didn't feel good about the effort that he was making. And so through that relationship, he started to let me look at some of his schoolwork, and he started to, maybe want to try some things that he hadn't wanted to try before. And then we went from, not really talking about or working on school related things at all, to one day, him being able to open his backpack and show me something that he had done at school and tell me about how good he felt, when he did it. So, I think being happy about yourself and feeling good about yourself and having that inner well-being that we talked about can really affect children in how they do at school, how they feel, and in their relationships.
Thanks, Allison. That really captured a lot of the points that we've been talking about. And so we can talk a little bit more about how then, as a parent, how can I support my child's happiness at school? And so just like Allison, you were talking to us about, I think your story really highlighted, how regular involvement in a safe and trusting kind of caregiving relationship for a child, how that relationship can help to mitigate the risks of poor self-esteem and low motivation. It sounds like in what you shared, when there's consistent responses to the child's, here we say constructive motives, so that part of them that wants to feel good about themselves, the part of them that does put in effort, the part of them that does try, that does want to be successful at school, whenever that is present, which a child just coming in to see you, that part of them is there. When it's consistently responded to, their constructive motives, this builds their capacity to, as you said, start to feel better about themselves inside. And this allows a student to start to share more about themselves and their interests, helping them to be more open and vulnerable, to a learning process, which will include successes and mistakes as well, and to be able to ask for help along the way, which can begin to feel good for a student when they're feeling better about themselves. So I wonder if you can share some more then about what you've seen in your work around how, when you're acknowledging a student in these ways, how this can connect to their improvement at school.
Yeah. So I think it's really important to acknowledge all of the child's feelings and their effort. As you mentioned, they do have these motives to feel good about themselves, to put forth effort. But a lot of the times these children can focus on the negative or how, they didn't do well. So just sort of acknowledging those two parts of themselves, the part that did put in effort and did try and wants to do well, and then also being open to that part that feels bad about themselves, for not doing, what they thought they could, or, that's hard on themselves. So meeting children where they are, acknowledging all those feelings and those efforts is really important. And then removing those pressures and those expectations. We all want children to do well. We all want children to, achieve their full potential. But a lot of the times children can feel those pressures and they put a lot of those negative feelings on themselves if they, they don't live up to what they think we want them to do. And one student that I've seen had a lot of feelings, of pressure and had a lot of expectations on herself. She was very hard on herself, and this led to a lot of testing anxiety and feeling like she had to, get straight A's on every test, and she had to know all the answers. And it was really difficult for this student to take tests in school. There's just so much anxiety around it and, pressure put on herself. And so I helped that child sort of understand those parts of her, the part that was really hard on herself when she didn't get everything right. But also the part of her that really did want to do well and did know the answer and was trying and putting forth that effort. So by working together and helping that child understand those two parts of herself, we were able to help her feel better about taking tests and take some of that pressure off of herself. And we went from, needing to take tests by herself in a really isolated environment or at home or, with other supports, all the way through to being able to take tests with the rest of the class and feeling as though she could do this. And if she didn't get the score that she had hoped, that it wasn't, a negative reflection on her, and that she could still turn to the relationship for help to feel better and to understand what maybe she had missed. And then, to add to that, this last bullet point, just recognizing the impact that COVID-19 has had on students. This is the third school year now that COVID-19 will be affecting, and to just recognize that the mode of learning has really changed. A lot of things have shifted online, and that is really difficult for some students. It's hard to access the material. It might be difficult to ask for help in this format. So just recognizing that this has really impacted everybody. It may have impacted relationships, supportive relationships. Students might not be able to get the support that they had gotten from teachers now that they're remote. And then even now that a lot of schools are transitioning back to in-person, just that adjustment again to a new environment, to new expectations, recognizing that and how that might affect students' learning and helping to remove the pressures for them and telling them that, their effort is important and that, outcomes aren't the only thing that we're looking for.
Excellent. Yeah, so thanks for giving some examples about the work that you've done and what you've seen in the students and their progression from, struggling with how they're feeling with themselves and approaching school to working through learning more about these experiences with a supportive relationship, and then to also tackle some of their academic goals and make progress. So that sort of leads into our last question for today. If you can tell us some more, Allison, how a service like therapeutic tutoring can help children, improve happiness as well as academic success.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. So therapeutic tutoring really combines this traditional academic tutoring with a therapeutic approach, meaning, we're able to teach all of those subjects, math, science, social studies, anything, language arts, reading, writing, spelling, all of those things that come up as subjects in school, the therapeutic tutors are able to work with students on. But we also have an eye towards how they're feeling, and we welcome those feelings into the session and help the students really understand how those parts of themselves might be contributing to their success or some of their frustrations. We really provide a space for the whole child to feel comfortable, for them to experience all of the things that they're feeling and to know that they'll still be loved and that they're still lovable, no matter what they're feeling or how school is going for them. Children are really able to work at their own pace. This is really important in that teachers have a set curriculum that they need to go through, and sometimes they may only be able to spend 1 week on a given subject, whereas a student may need more time to process, to understand, to really dig into that topic, to really master it. So tutors are able to work with that child at their own pace to allow them more time to really get into all the details of those subjects. We have manipulatives, and we have the space and the one-on-one ability to really help that child feel good and really get into what that child needs in order to succeed academically. I worked with a student who was failing most of his classes and was really struggling to understand what was being taught, to really show up to class and to feel motivated to do well. And through our relationship, we were able to tackle both the motivational piece to go to class and to want to do well, but also we got into the academics of, what does this mean and how do I solve this problem? And so it really combines those feelings with the academic tutoring that you would get in a traditional tutoring setting. And the last point is really that therapeutic tutoring helps support the child across the home environment, the school environment. Wherever that child goes, we want to help them feel supported. So tutors will reach out to teachers and to parents, and they're really an advocate for the student to help them feel like their voice is being heard, that they're getting the support that they need across all the environments.
Absolutely. And Allison, I do remember the work you were doing with that last student you just talked to us about, and the most wonderful part was that he ended up passing his classes and was able to move on to the next grade, which I know is a huge hurdle, and something that was so spectacular in this combined approach of therapeutic tutoring that was able to support that student to their success. So I believe that concludes our discussion around how we can support children and their happiness and success at school. So thank you everyone who joined us today for this talk. And if you would like to learn more about therapeutic tutoring or any of our services at Smart Love, please do visit our website here at www.smartlovefamily.org, and we will hope to hear from you.